Hi guys, Dan Hendrickson here at Torquay Golf Club. Something slightly different for you today. We've got Matt from Callaway.
Thank you.
Who's come in. He's going to do a demo day for us today here at Torquay Golf Club.
Yep.
So we are going to be looking in this video at some wedges for you. Thought we'd have a little look in the wedge bag, get Matt to sort of talk about some of the grinds, the bounces, how they work, and how they can hopefully help your game. We've got, what, 4 wedges in your hand?
Yeah, got 4 wedges just to start us off.
Just to start us off. So those are the 4 different grinds that you've got in your selection, let's say by Callaway. You've also got one extra, haven't you, which we'll come to afterwards.
We have, yeah. So S grind for us is really just our standard grind. So probably our most versatile wedge really when we start talking about, you know, not having any increase or any reduction in the bounce that we put on the wedge. So S grind for us is available in pretty much all the lofts that we carry. So literally any loft that you see through the bag that we do here, which is 46 right the way through to 64, you'll be able to get an S grind on. They'll all be at 10 degrees of bounce, so you know, us as a brand, what we do is just denote the grind that we're going to have, and that grind is going to give us the amount of bounce that we're looking for that particular wedge. Slight little bit of heel and toe relief through the wedge, a little bit of camber through there as well to obviously help players in a sort of fairly moderate strike pattern. You know, not maybe taking too much of a divot, but certainly some divot taking profiles. When you start talking about the firmer grounds, firmer textures, linksy style golf courses, players then maybe start to like taking some bounce away, stop getting the leading edge sort of poking up off the surface when they're playing the shots. So that's where something like C grind for us can come in. So pretty much the same sort of sole width unit that we have on the S grind, but it's just been shaved down a little bit just to take a little bit of that bounce away. So players again tend to find that, you know, if we're not too steep in taking divots, you know, the club's not interacting too much with the ground or even in the bunkers, anyone that maybe just sort of shaves the edge a little bit will tend to strike it that little bit better with something of a slightly smaller bounce. So wide for us is then a much wider sole unit as a W might suggest. So what we'll see through that is then an increase of the bounce. So these wedges really designed for anyone that starts to, you know, really get some steep interaction with the ground, any interaction with the surface when pitching, chipping, bunkers, those types of things. So if you're that player that really takes a big foot size hole out of the ground when you're hitting your wedge shots, maybe thinking about something with a little bit more bounce in the wedge. You know, the idea of the bounce is that leading edge doesn't get too disturbed by going down and into the ground, because as soon as you start seeing that wedge is going to slow down, potentially affect your strike in a negative manner. So again, you know, it's the idea of us coming along and doing these sort of demonstration days, having people try all of them, and again, if we can in different areas, you know, I'd always encourage that. X grind for us, a little bit of everything almost in there. So we've got wider sole unit than the S, but the higher bounce. So the higher bounce coming through from the wide grind. But what we've done is shave out all of the areas so that we've got a lot of heel and toe relief. So when players start opening up the face, this part of the golf club, the leading edge, doesn't get too aggressive off the floor. So you can still lay the club quite open and not be scared of hitting those sort of Phil Mickelson style shots where the strike might be worried if you're getting that leading edge a little high. So
okay, then the last one that I want to just discuss with you is the Phil Mickelson grind.
Yeah.
So guys seeing it on the actual shelf will see it as a PM grind.
That's right.
But ultimately that is Callaway's Phil Mickelson grind, isn't it?
That's it, yeah. So okay. with our Phil Mickelson range of wedges, obviously pertinent to Phil, his sort of design influence is pretty heavy on these types of wedges. So what we're going to start to see is that all of the lofts that we run through, they're all just pre-configured with the same or particular amount of loft will have a particular amount of bounce, just to reflect the kind of clubs that he likes to use. So typically what we'll see there is certainly in the lower lofted ones, we've actually got a little bit more bounce, and that's just feedback from Phil that, you know, certainly for most of his golfing life, he's like that sort of higher bounce sand wedge. And again, like we talked earlier, maybe that's where we can start bridging that gap of versatility. Leading into the lob wedge kind of numbers, the bounce angle actually starts to reduce. So again, Phil's renowned at playing those silly flop shots that we've even seen, you know, just this week gone at the Masters.
And difference in shape, isn't there? So
yeah, real difference.
But look at how this really high toe here compared to more traditional rounded, and also interestingly, look at how the grooves kind of stop on the edge here, but these grooves go right the way to the end of the club.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
So the idea of that is obviously when you start opening up the face, your hitting area basically starts to reduce. So if we took a straight line impact such as this going towards the lens there, if I start to open up the face, you'll see how I've now got a lot less of a hitting area. Yeah. So with this design, we've actually encompassed our MD4 technology, which is the groove in groove story from the MD4 range. Yeah. We've actually got micro grooves that sit in between each of the normal grooves that we would see there. They protrude the head, so they actually sit slightly above the profile of the normal grooves to try and help us increase friction, try and increase that spin rate. But with these wedges, and this is only the case in the Phil Mickelson style that we have, the grooves are actually offset, and they're offset to 20 degrees. Again, really with a premise that the types of shots that you'll be hitting with this, you're going to be opening up the face, so we want that groove interaction to be in line with the direction of the shot that you're hitting. So when we start talking about why there's grooves right the way across the face, again, you know, we see time and time again that when you hit chip shots, the tendency is that you might catch it towards the toe, even more so when we're going to lay that face nice and open. So Phil's always quite like the idea of having it across there. It makes sense to us, so why not bring it to market?
Absolutely right. So I'm going to take these wedges out onto the short game area. I'm going to hit some shots with them, just give you an idea of what I'm feeling, and also give you an idea of how I'm interacting with the turf. And talking from what Matt's saying there, as the sole of the club slightly changes, then it should interact with the turf in a slightly different way. Let's get onto the short game area and actually hit some chip shots, shall we? It is interesting. It's only until you get out onto a short game area playing it off, you know, normal lies, sometimes a bit tight, sometimes a bit fluffy, where you really start to get a gauge as to how the soul of the club is working. Listening to what Matt is saying about all the different grinds and different bounces, I'm starting to see it now. I'm starting to feel it. Certainly with that S grind, it felt, you know, I use a very similar one in my particular model, my lob wedge, and it's very similar to what I currently use. But when I sort of put down the C grind and have a compare of that, you know, I could feel it just wanting to kind of dig in a little bit. When I looked at the W grind, I could feel that was just tending to want to bounce on me. Again, these wedges will work so differently for different players in different situations at different courses. Interestingly, the one that really jumps out to me though is that Phil Mickelson grind. Because it's so different, you get a sense that it's actually going to give you a little bit more help. Let me know what you think. Have you been in and tested any of these wedges? Do you notice a difference when you have tested and notice a difference in turf interaction with the soles and bounces? Put your comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Keep sending in those questions, #AskDan. I look forward to catching up with you all again soon.